We know it's been an historic season for the UTSA Roadrunners. 7-0 on the year, in the top 25 in both polls for the first time in program history. And it looks like they're about to have another upgrade in their conference. It is the Blitz here on San Antonio Sports Star, ESPN AM 1250 and 94.5 FM. I'm Jason Minnix. And Pete Thamel, the National College Football and Basketball reporter for Yahoo Sports, also host of the Yahoo Sports College podcast. They go into a deep dive on this realignment. But Pete Thamel broke the story last night. The American Athletic Conference is expanding by 6, and one of those teams is the UTSA Roadrunners. Pete joins us now, and Pete, appreciate you taking the time. You know, we've heard rumblings ever since Texas and OU left for the SEC that one of the dominoes could end up being UTSA going to the American Athletic Conference. I'm surprised to see them going to 6, but let's focus a little bit on the growth of the AAC in the state of Texas, which obviously includes UTSA.
Well, I mean, this is a historic week for UTSA. I don't think it can be overstated how big of a jump it is from Conference USA to the AAC. In terms of exposure, first of all, America is going to really get to know UTSA. And they started to, and they should know, because Coach Traylor has obviously done an unbelievable job, getting to the top 25 for the first time here. And I just think that there's a tried and true formula that I've seen in my 20 years covering national college football that's worked. If you take the exposure of ESPN, especially those Thursday night games and those Friday night games, and you combine a fertile market like San Antonio with great recruiting, and you give it the exposure and you give it some TV money, it's going to grow. And I think this is a pivotal moment for UTSA right now, where their investment is going to have to match their ambition. You can go to the AAC, but and I know they just opened a new facility there, but if you don't really dial in and invest in your program, it's very easy to get left behind. And I think if you look up the road at North Texas, they've really invested in facilities. And even though they are not winning on the field, they're poised to be in good position. And I think that's going to be the challenge for UTSA now that they've gotten to this moment, is to really rally, dial in with donors, with boosters, and prioritize football fundraising going forward.
Pete Thamel joining us here on the Blitz, the national college football writer at Yahoo. Interesting, because Jeff Traylor on this show yesterday, I asked him not about the conference because I knew he wouldn't answer it, and he didn't answer it with the media today either. But I asked him, what do you tell your kids when you hear your name talked about with jobs other places? And he said he wants to be here, gave that typical kind of answer, but said it takes a lot of money for this program to get where it needs to go. As you talk about this, where UTSA is at in Conference USA, how much more money of an athletic operating budget are they going to need to be able to maintain success in this bigger conference?
Well, I don't have budgets sitting in front of me right now.
Oh, come on, Pete.
The commitment's significant, because you now have to like go toe-to-toe financially with Memphis. You have to go toe-to-toe financially with Navy. And if you look at Navy and what they pay their coaches, it's a lot of money. You are now just swinging at a different weight. And I really think it's going to be incumbent on Rice to really step up as well. Now, I don't know the UTSA nuances, whether the Alamo Dome is going to be their home forever, or does this give them an excuse to put a nice, cozy little 40,000, 35,000 seat stadium on campus to really let football become a vibrant part of the campus community there. But you have a chance here. This is a great opportunity for UTSA. It's a great opportunity for the city of San Antonio, and I really hope that the leadership, and this is above Lisa Campos AD, but the leadership above at the university recognizes and prioritizes this type of opportunity, because at the end of the day, I always use Louisville, which early in my career was in Conference USA, as the paradigm. Tom Jurich, the athletic director there, built and built and built more, and raised money and raised money and raised more money, and hired great coaches which UTSA has clearly done. And what followed was success. And what followed was bigger conferences. And what followed was a national profile. Louisville was not a national program 20 years ago when John L. Smith was the coach. And winning and exposure give you that opportunity. And so I'm excited for UTSA, because if Cincinnati can do this and if Central Florida can do this, there's no reason the city of San Antonio can't support a winning, vibrant top 25 football team. The obstacle is investment. That's the biggest obstacle right now. There are plenty of players. They clearly have the right coach. And now they just have to go toe-to-toe with the bells and whistles, with the training table, with the recruiting departments. I mean, it's a big spend, big deliver business that they're in. And now that they have a seat at this table, they just can't be happy to sit. They need to belly up and invest.
Well said. Pete Thamel joining us here on the Blitz, national college football and basketball writer at Yahoo, hosts their podcast as well at Yahoo. They do a deep dive into the realignment. When you look at the American jumping 6 teams, were you surprised when you were doing your research for this story and before you broke it yesterday that they were adding 6 teams? And what that means to the revenue that they're going to have to now pay out to 14 teams in the conference?
Well, the way the revenue is going to go, and I wrote this in a little bit more detail on Yahoo today, is that essentially the 8 remaining football members, and we'll just use football to make this easier, in the AAC are still going to get what are full shares. And then the 6 newer members are going to get partial shares that start at more than $2 million a year, which is almost like 3x, 4x what they're making now in TV revenue. Conference USA's TV deal is not great. And they can, yes, exactly. And then I'm sure you probably spent some time talking about Conference USA's TV deal on this show. And then they'll be able to move to move up, and it's going to be a financial boon. And the deal's through 32, and the revenue is certainly an important part of that deal, but it's also the exposure. Like that's the priceless part, and that's really, I think, where the opportunity lies. But you asked more about what? You asked about. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
Adding 6 teams as the American, 6, and they want to be in Texas. They moved their headquarters to Texas. I'm surprised to see that they are expanding by 6.
So fair, but here's what's happened. If you look at what that conference is and what it was as the Big East, right? It's a turnstile. People move up, they win, and then they can move on. There's a very clear linear line to success in bigger conferences. And so many times as the Big East went through its changes over the years, getting rated by the ACC and everything, they stayed small. And I think that really hurt them. So I think the move to 14, and certainly nobody has told me this, but it's a tacit acknowledgement that, hey, a couple of these teams might be gone in a few years. So let's invest in markets. They're still getting way more TV revenue, but we're not taking money out of the pockets of the incumbents, and let's let them all grow. And if Memphis and South Florida leave for the Big 12 in 3 years, we're not going through this whole dance again. I think that's really the key. The key to this is you go to 6 because you quietly have to look out on the landscape and think that others may leave. And so I was not stunned by that. I actually think that's a pretty savvy move, having just sort of lived through all these reverberations in that league.
Pete, how surprising is it that a program that's in its 11th season is already gone to or climbing the ladder now into their 4th conference promotion, if you will? They've gone up every time. Location.
Isn't that the real estate axiom, right?
Absolutely.
It's a great area. It's a great city. It has great high school football. And if you take a 300-mile radius from the city of San Antonio, there's enough talent there to win a national championship. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win a national championship, but you have enough talent in a 300-mile radius where you can take the bounce back portal leftovers from that radius and win a conference title in a lower league. So All the credit in the world to the people at UTSA for starting the program, for having the vision. Larry Coker, Frank Wilson, they all kind of put the bricks in, but really Jeff is the one who has taken this thing and put it into overdrive and made people think what's possible. And don't underestimate the football facility that they have now as a piece to, this being important. And we haven't talked much about basketball or other sports, but football is 90% of this deal. And that's what people are really dialed in on. And UTSA has to get better in other sports in order to compete and be, 10 years from now, if there's another shake and people are looking around. But I see the AAC as UTSA's home for the next decade, and I think it's going to be a great marriage.
It certainly seems that way. I couldn't agree more, Pete, especially when we talk football. And they just built that new $40 million facility for football, although their basketball arena, the Convocation Center, it might be one of the worst in the country. I mean, it literally is a barn. When you walk up to it, you think it's some sort of an industrial warehouse. They're going to have to upgrade it and put some money into those basketball facilities so Coach Steve Henson has an opportunity to have some of the same success that they're having on the football side. Don't you agree?
I agree. Steve's a great coach, and I have actually been to the arena there, and it is just not what Memphis has. Let's put it that way.
Did I describe it properly for you since you've been there?
you did. I think they'll use that description on their next official recruiting visits.
I don't think Henson takes any basketball recruits actually to the arena. They go eat at the Riverwalk.
Yeah, no, that's smart. That would be smart.
It is. Now, you mentioned Jeff Traylor a couple of times, and what Coach Traylor has done in 2 years is remarkable. I know what he talked about at his introductory press conference and the first time he came on the show and last year, and he talked about his vision, and he won't allow him to get too much into this 7-0 start. His phrase about don't eating the cheese and, it's kind of taken over San Antonio, right? But when you look at what he has done, how hard is it going to be for UTSA to keep him in San Antonio beyond this year?
Well, I think that they'd be smart to be proactive, right? Texas Tech is always a volatile job. And, I mean, look, he's not going to go get the Washington State job, right? Jeff Traylor is Texas. So, and there's always going to be a premium on a coach in that footprint. And certainly he could, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, places like that. But there's going to be a premium on a coach who is deeply respected in the high school football space in Texas. And that's what Jeff is. So, look, I think their out of conference next year is looks a little different than their out of conference this year. So,
yep.
I don't expect them to beat the Longhorns next year and start 7-0 again. But what I think they've found is the right guy for the right place at the right time. And if you're going to lose Jeff Traylor, and eventually I think they will lose him down the road, you want to make sure it's to a blue blood and not a bottom. If I was the administration at UTSA, I would say he is not leaving us for a bottom tier of a Power 5 league job. Like if he ends up going to, Texas, Oklahoma State, make him be patient enough and make him comfortable enough where if he's going to leave, it has to be for a gangbuster shot, not where people go, okay, you know what, you did us well, and that's too good for you to pass up.
Interesting thought process, and it's going to be an interesting discussion. Already has been with different people calling the show or tweeting me talking about, do we need to start a GoFundMe? What do we need to do to keep Jeff Traylor in San Antonio? And I look at Jeff Traylor and I know he's got goals, and his goals were higher than Conference USA. He hasn't told me that personally, but when you win 3 state championships in Gilmer and they name the stadium after you and you're young like Jeff Traylor, you could have had that job forever. He obviously has bigger goals from where he wants to be a coach and the amount of money that ends up in his bank account, or he'd still be in Gilmer, Texas.
Sure. And I know Jeff Traylor a little bit, and I do know this. He loves coaching there. He knows what a good fit it is. He understands messing with Happy and the risks that come with that, and he is very happy there.
That's a big part of the equation, and more importantly, I think Mrs. Traylor is happy here too. But you know,
I
when
can't
you go
speak
from
to that, my sources aren't that good.
when you go from close to 1 million to millions, it's certainly hard to pass that up. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Pete, appreciate your reporting on the story last night and taking the time to join us today to give us some more insight on the move, because as you can imagine, everybody over at UTSA and with the conference is very mum right now.
Yeah, well, I think there'll be a press conference by the end of the week. In fact, I'm confident there'll be a press conference by the end of the week. And yeah, I think people should be holding up some margaritas high on the Riverwalk this week. It's a great week in San Antonio and a great week for UTSA football.
Appreciate it. Pete Thamel, read them on Yahoo. Listen to that podcast. You want more on the American Athletics Conference realignment? It's on the podcast right now. Pete, always appreciate the time, man. We'll talk soon.
Hey, thanks, Jason. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate it. Pete Thamel from Yahoo. Great follow on Twitter. College football, college basketball. There's nobody better than Pete.